You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All right, right, folks. Well, it's Tuesday evening, just a few minutes past the hour of 10 Eastern, right here on KLRNradio.com. And you know what that means. It means it's time for the Jenn and Rick Show. I'm one half of the crew. I'm the ugly one. I'm also the one with as few brain cells to rub together as possible. But I do have Jenn with me this evening. Miss Jenn, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, I guess. Spent half the day in the torture chamber, otherwise known as the chiropractor. Other than that, I guess I'm doing okay.
Yeah, that's never fun.
Especially when you're really old and really stiff like I am, because with all of my injuries, I don't move very well, and they keep putting me in these little machines that I like to call the pretzel maker. Because it's like it's got my legs going up and down, it's got my waist going left to right, and the doc's sitting there with this big freaking massager thing that looks like something from a 70s sci-fi movie pressing down on my back, and I'm like, is this all really necessary? Apparently he thought it was. So yeah, one visit down, 12 more weeks worth to go.
Ooh.
Somebody shoot me now.
Hopefully it'll get better.
Somebody shoot me now. All right, so what have you been up to since we last talked? Anything interesting? Anything exciting?
Nothing super exciting.
Come on, I'm old and I live in the middle of nowhere. I have to live vicariously through somebody. Come on now.
I am still just immersing myself in the wonderful world of the Olympics, where dreams do come true. So that's been pretty fun.
Damn you,
the
Dish
United
Network.
States was just dominating as predicted, but kind of more so than usual. So we've got 84 total medals, and the next closest to us has 50, and that's Great Britain.
Speaking of the Olympics, and this just actually occurred to me, so I don't have the tweet up, but did you read the nonsense Neil deGrasse Tyson was tweeting about the Olympics and the medals?
No, I missed that.
Apparently, and this is kind of going from memory, but he had pointed out the fact that, United States wasn't technically dominating, because if we went off of random population sizing, etc., there was some little country I'd never even heard of before that he was like, technically they're beating everyone. And I'm like, you're like supposed to be one of the smartest guys on the planet, and I don't even understand what you just said.
He's so obnoxious. He's just so dang obnoxious. It's hard to deal with. But, I don't really care. You know that if we took away the medals from the United States that were won by Texans, Texas would be in the top 5 for medaling. And if we took away the medals from even Texas that were won by athletes of the University of Texas, my alma mater, they would be in the top 10. So, I think America's doing pretty dang good, and I'll go ahead and give a little rah-rah for all my Texans that are kicking butt in the Olympics.
Why is it always got to be about you in Texas?
I know. Well, we're just so great. Just accept it.
Really? Hey, actually, while you were waxing poetic about Texas, damn Texan, I actually did find some of the tweets from Mr. Tyson about the Olympics.
Oh, good.
The USA has 3 times as many Olympic golds as Hungary, but 30 times the population. Adjusting for this, Hungary is kicking our beep.
Well, he can kiss my beep, because I think that's so silly. And actually, I would bet you that a bunch of them come from their one swimmer who has been very dominant, but that they could not count on to be that way. So just, whatever. Interesting.
And then there's this little gem, and then it kind of just it shows a bunch of people replying to his tweet. But I thought this one was interesting too. With so much enthusiasm for the Second Amendment in the USA, the least we should expect is to win every Olympic shooting event.
Oh, good grief. Oh, that's great. Well, I will tell you something that's this just like blows my mind. So Michael Phelps swam his final race the other night. It was a relay race with 3 other American swimmers where they each swim a leg of a different stroke. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, what kind of pressure must be on these other guys to bring home that medal for the final swim of the most decorated and considered the greatest Olympian of all time, where he said that this is his final thing, and to have that pressure on you to perform under that kind of under those expectations. Well, they did so magnificently, and after it was over, they said, well, now that he's won this final gold. Of all time, most men's swimming gold medals of all time. Number 1 is the U.S. without Phelps at 120. Number 2 is Australia with 34 of all time. And number 3 would be Michael Phelps with 23. So if you took his medals away from the U.S. and put him in his own category, he would rank above every other country in the world except for Australia and the U.S. in swimming medals of all time. That's insane. He is 100% a legend. It's just crazy. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again in our lifetime.
Probably not in our lifetime.
Not like that. We'll see some really dominant athletes. We'll see some really awesome swimmers. And some that will really probably break some records in future Olympics. But to go 5 Olympics, win that many medals, it's just he's so far out ahead of anybody else. And there have been some really great ones that it just does not seem likely that we will see that again. Maybe, 100 years from now, maybe even 60 years from now, but not anytime soon. They don't have any up-and-comers that are likely to be able to do it. So, yeah, there we go. Track and field starting, so that's been fun. Change of pace. Gymnastics is over. Our girls won a whole bunch, and that's about it for my Olympics chit-chat right now.
Damn you, Dish Network. Yes, Dish Network is still in contract disputes with NBC's parent company, and neither one of them is willing to budge, so all I really get to see is the stuff on the Olympics nobody else really wants to watch. Because there are other channels with other stuff, but it's not any of the good stuff.
Yeah, that is true. They've got like well, I enjoy tennis, but I mean, they've got like the full tennis matches or the full, water polo, or they've got some of the more like, just not as fanfare type sporting events going on some of these other channels that they're on those other channels for a reason.
So, speaking of somebody, I mean, honestly, I've never really been that much into other than a handful of sports. I mean, I played some football, baseball, basketball when I was younger. But water polo, what the hell is the point in that?
I don't know. And it seems so tough, and it's so brutal too, because apparently they're constantly like kicking and scratching and clawing underneath the water at each other also. So they get all sorts of, bruises and scratches and things that happen down below that we're not seeing on top. It's just, it just seems like a whole lot of thrashing around in the pool and throwing a ball, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of rhyme or reason to it, and just, gosh, a lot of effort for very little reward. But I'm gonna get yelled at by water polo fans now.
That's all right. I have a few friends of mine that are fans of water polo too, so I'm sure I'm gonna hear about it later. But I've tried watching it. It's not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I would sit down and actually read the rules and understand what the point was, maybe I could get into it. But the weirdest thing is, I never even really looked at water polo. Being a sci-fi junkie, the first time I ever really even paid attention to the fact that it existed was when Captain Archer from the Enterprise series was actually a big water polo fan. So I was like, if it's on Star Trek, maybe it can't be terrible. Then again, that series was kind of terrible, even though I am a Scott Bakula fan. So what are you going to do? But I guess the interesting thing for me is because I'd never really looked into water polo much, I didn't realize that they were in like really, really deep water. So the fact that they're having to tread water the whole time made it a little more interesting. I just figured they were playing around in a pool like we all did when we were kids.
No, yeah, they can't touch. And in fact, there are all sorts of penalties and consequences if they do. So But they make it deep enough so that that's not really an issue.
Okay, so I think we've about reached the end of the Olympics talk since I really haven't been able to keep up very well. So, Brad Thor is basically rethinking his Never Trump stance.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a really big one. I'm actually still kind of shocked about it. I understand, just like I've understood other people. That are reluctantly going to be for Trump. But this is a big kind of hit in the gut to me over someone who has been hanging on and standing very strong and been very bold with statements and outlining principles. So it's a tough pill to swallow for me, and I love Brad, so that's really kind of making me kind of sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I don't understand it because I read through some of the tweets that he put out today, and he's known for a while now that there was really not any way to stop Hillary if we don't rally behind Trump.
Right.
So to come out with that now in the fourth quarter, so to speak, I'm just kind of like, were you just trying to make sure that you got some Never Trump fans to buy your books, or was there other method to your madness here? Because to me, this is as lame as his when he like the night before he went on the Glenn Beck show and was like tweeting about how he was considering a third party run, and then somebody said, so what, are they finally going to float you as a candidate? And he's like, yeah, and we're going to do it too. And I mean, everybody that is involved in all these little groups trying to get viable parties going again saw that and was like, maybe we should get behind this guy. And then one of the folks in one of the groups that I'm in was listening to the Beck interview, and they're like, never mind, it was all some big kind of joke or something. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really? I don't know. I mean,
I don't really know what to do with it. I mean, I think there still is a modicum of respect for people like him that, are not bending over the way that the Sean Hannitys, of the world are. So I'm going to kind of see how this carries out. I certainly don't fault anyone for campaigning or for going against Hillary and actively working against her. I just don't see Trump as even remotely a viable option that is any less. Actually, I think he's scarier than she is. I think her record is, abhorrent. And I think that we kind of know her, but I think he's so scary because he's a wild card. And the more and more he says, the more that this looks to be just, as nightmarish as has been predicted. And people said it was an over exaggeration, and I don't think it is at all. So I don't like to have to choose between, liquid poison or pill. And that's kind of how this feels.
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not going out like Socrates. I'm not going to be like, I drank what? No, thank you. I don't know. I mean, to me, it all comes down to this overarching feeling that I've now had for several months, and I'm actually probably about to send an article about this over to American Action News because, so I don't want to give out too much of it, but I've had this overarching feeling for several months that Donald Trump actually never really intended to be president, nor does he want to be president. Because look at all the different ways that he's tried to shoot himself in the foot.
Well, at the very least, he's not serious. He has been about as unserious as you can possibly be when running for this office. So much so that, it's just such a joke to almost everybody that even listens with just even listens to him for a tiny little bit and looks at just a few of the things that he said. I mean, he absolutely has not been serious about anything. He treats it, I think, ridiculously disrespectfully. and just seems hellbent on, making a splash and being as outrageous as possible. And I don't think he wants to win based on how he's behaving and based on where he's been campaigning and visiting, and the kind of messages he's putting out there, and his lack of ads and lack of offices open in various areas, and especially swing states. I think all of these things, not just what the outrageous stuff you hear on TV, but I think there's a whole lot of things that add up to thinking that this candidate is not serious about winning this campaign. So I think that that's even another reason to be never Trump, is because he's not taking your vote seriously. And that is abhorrent to me.
Well, just to take it a step further here at this point, I don't think not only is he not taking the people seriously that are going to vote for him, I think he is basically conning the people that are going to vote for him. Because, simply put, he has, like you said, he has no ground game in swing states at all. How can you be serious about trying to be president of the United States if you don't even have a ground game in swing states? He has so little of a ground game. In fact, Hillary Clinton isn't even running ads in swing states. She's focusing on states where she's never even had a pinky in the water before. The Democratic Party is running ads in Oklahoma, for God's sake. They've never run ads here. I have never seen a Democratic ad for president unless it was on one of the national channels or national feed. I'm actually seeing them during local time here. They're running them in Utah, for God's sake. Utah, that is probably nearly as bright red as Oklahoma, it has had Democratic ads running. And Trump isn't even bothering to run ads in swing states. And people tell me that he's a serious contender for president. People are not paying attention to what he's doing. And even more glaringly, they're not paying attention to what it is that he isn't doing, which is trying to win this race. We've been had. Sorry, I get a little angry still about this.
No, and I think we all can. And I think that there's even the things about, you've made good points about the ground game and all of that. And then I think it even goes further into the people that he's been using, the people that he's put as some of his, the faces of his campaign. Let's look at Pearson. She couldn't be more of a joke. It's so hard to take her seriously. Anything and everything she says is either absolutely false or just some of the most outrageous spin. And we have to deal with spin from the Democrats on a constant, on a daily basis. On the mainstream media, we know what the heck spin looks like, especially after 8 years of Obama. And she's giving some of the worst I've ever seen. And it's just laughable. It's not even, it's just so ridiculous. And so again, this is just one more thing that leads me to believe that he's not taking any of this seriously. And he absolutely is conning the American people, and he's disrespecting our democratic process and the office of the president of the United States. And I think that's what I'm kind of resigned to. It's just an all-out disrespect, and that's just so sad.
Well, and take it just a step further for a second, because there's an interesting story that got leaked out around the same time last week, and it was something that Frank Luntz had brought to the table. I believe it was Frank Luntz. I always get those two confused, because doesn't he have a brother or something? Anyway, maybe I think I'm confusing someone with someone else. But there was a story that came out that Donald Trump was considering starting his own news network. Kind of hard to do that when you're president. Just saying. Can't really run a news network and run a country at the same time. Yeah, and I've seen that, and that may be the thing that makes the most sense out of all of this entire election season, is to get all of this to be able to kind of take Fox down, take down some of the mainstream, and to then start his own and prop it up and have had just all this recent popularity in politics so that he could maybe the station could be taken, seriously, in a way from the type of people that voted for him, the people that think that everybody that is, hasn't just completely bowed down and kissed his face are just all liberal shills, which is just absurd. But
that they would be the ones that would then, boycott everything else and turn in only to his network. I think that would actually be the thing that makes the most sense to me, and also maybe kind of the brilliance behind all of this absolute tomfoolery.
Speaking of tomfoolery, did you know that Donald Trump has a new advisor?
Yes, I have heard this.
So you do know who it is.
I have heard.
Okay, so in a very Hillary Clinton style fashion, shall we say, because everybody remember when Debbie Wasserman Schultz was disgraced and forced to resign from the DNC, and moments later was hired by Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump, which is honestly running some sort of a weird mirror of her campaign, has recently brought on disgraced former head of Fox News Roger Ailes as an advisor. Meh.
Yeah.
You couldn't possibly make this stuff up if you tried. I swear, Saturday Night Live was going to have material for the next 40 years without even trying.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, they used to have to suck on one little morsel and just turn it into show after show after show. He absolutely gives them so much that they can't cover it unless all they do is politics all the time. If they parody politics all the time, they can cover all of the shenanigans going on with this campaign. But since that's not the gig of their show, that's not their bit, they're just going to have endless material to work with and choose the best parts of. And it's going to be hilarious. And those are going to be the kinds of things that I'm going to laugh and watch and get me through all of this crap, because it is utter crap. That and a little bit of the deliciousness of the meltdowns that are going to happen in November all over the place.
So in the other not so surprising move, Donald Trump has actually already started floating the idea that if he loses in certain states, it will be because Hillary Clinton cheated, not because he sucks at running a ground game for president.
Yeah, the idea of setting up for the loss, setting up the excuses, setting up the idea, planting the seeds of the system being rigged, of people cheating, of watching out and watch your fellow voters and take pictures at the voting booth and all this kind of conspiratorial crap. I think there's always a little bit of that in all of us whenever we're heading into anything. I mean, especially when we've had to deal with how incredibly dishonest the Democrats are, and how they are fighting so hard against these voter ID laws, and that they are trying so hard to get illegals voting rights, and all these things that they know better their party, that help their party. So it's very natural for conservatives to be somewhat distrustful of Democrats when we go to the voting booth and when we're just involved in this entire process. And he's playing on that, and he's also setting it up so that he has a built-in excuse and he can automatically lay blame. He'll lay blame at the Never Trumpers, and he'll call out certain people, and then he'll also lay blame on the system being in it for Hillary Clinton, and that she is a cheating cheater who cheats, which she probably is, not to the extent of which will make him lose, though. He's doing that well enough all on his own.
Being called a cheating cheater who cheats by a lying liar who lies. That is the 2016 election cycle. All right, so before we go to break, a little bit of breaking news that was just brought to my attention. Our very own Stacey Lennox from right here on KLNRradio.com has actually just been featured in an article written by Mr. Alan West, or Colonel Alan West, retired. Miss Sally Cohn was actually put out a tweet today that basically said the following: "Hey, real Donald Trump, many progressive Muslims, the ones we should support in ideological fight against extremism." So, Miss Lennox, a little bit further down the page, let me get back to where she was. The tweet in which a progressive suggests we should completely abandon Western values to be PC. And then, of course, shout out to a buddy of ours that is in a group that we're in, Mr. Ian, is there is nothing progressive about Sharia law. That should be readily apparent to any thinking person. So, great job, guys. You've
really cool.
That was really cool.
She went off the rails today.
Hey, that's not for another 30 minutes. Let's not go there. All right, folks, on that note, we have got to take a commercial break, pay a few bills. When we come back, we're going to talk about the mess that is the Libertarian Party. Just when you thought this election cycle couldn't get any weirder, guess what? It just did. We'll be right back.
Back down, 'cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could, 'cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of a short story through to the line edits of a full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
To do what it is you think I should.
All right, right, folks, we're back. We're live, already into the second half of the show, and as promised, here in a minute, we're actually going to change gears and talk about some developing news in the Libertarian Party. But first, actually, since we had just had that come back across the wire, I'd actually forgotten that I did want to talk a little bit about this Sally Cohn story today, because is it me, or is it a little counterproductive for someone that is a part of the gay community to talk about how we should be supporting people who support Sharia law? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Sharia law call for her to be put to death? Color me confused.
Right. Muslims believe in Sharia, then they're not really that progressive. And it's funny, one of my friends, I call HM, he's at the Hired Mind on Twitter, he said, sure, they've progressed into the 8th century, which made me crack up. This idea that Sharia is totally cool and should be respected, but hey, don't refuse to bake that cake because your religion is dumb and it's offensive and it's imposing on my rights and yada, yada, yada. The lack of self-awareness here is just kind of hilarious. And also, she's the same type of person that just screams separation of church and state, but wants to be supportive of and actually kind of rally for a theocracy, because that's what Sharia is. I'm not sure if she doesn't understand how it all works, but it actually is religious rule of law. It is a theocracy. There's no separation about it. It's completely intertwined, and non-believers fall under that in very much harsh ways. So, and that's just even completely, putting aside her homosexuality, which makes that even more horrific for her. This was one of those that Cohn is always putting stuff out there that makes me just shake my head, but this is one of her worst in a while. It's actually quite dumb.
So basically, she's advocating to, 1, wear a burqa, and 2, throw herself off the roof. Just let that sink in.
And you know what? If she volunteers first, whoops, I didn't say that.
All right, so, it's just one of those things where, I'm kind of reminded of the meme that was making the rounds there for a while. Hey, Sally, do you keep using this word Sharia law? I do not think it means what you think it means. I'm just saying. Because, apparently you just advocated for you yourself to be thrown off a roof, so I'm kind of confused by that. Speaking of things that have utterly confused me, because as you guys may know, I've had the head of the Libertarian Party, Mr. Nicholas Sarwark, on the show now twice. I'm actually working on trying to get him back on now to explain something to me, because I really don't understand what happened with the Libertarian vice presidential candidate pick earlier this last week, when he basically said that, now, just to put this in context, what he actually said was that he felt that rifles in the hands of mentally unstable people should be considered weapons of should be considered weapons of mass destruction. That, maybe not so much of a problem with that. But when he went a step further and said, and I also think that people that are on the terror watch list should not have the ability to buy guns, he then started talking about infringing on Second and Fourth Amendment rights for people, that because there's no due process to get yourself on the list, there's no due process to get yourself off the list. So right. You're immediately removing Fourth Amendment from the equation, and then because of that, you're immediately infringing on someone's Second Amendment rights. So I'm confused. The libertarians were supposed to be, we're trying to take over the world so we can leave you alone. How does making big government bigger and enforcing lists that shouldn't really probably exist the way they do now in the first place, and making them a no-gun list, how does that leave us alone? I'm so confused.
Well, that's the thing. This is like, wait, what? This is in no way a pro-liberty stance. This is completely, it's like just absolutely against pretty much everything the Libertarian Party stands for. And let's go even further back, and this is part of why why Weld is also kind of a shocking choice for a lot of people that have walked the line of libertarian, conservative, that whole conservatarian thing, is that In 93, he came out with a ban that he was in support of a ban on assault weapons. He was in support of a waiting period for buying handguns and also limiting the number of handguns someone could buy. And he called it, where have we heard this before? Common sense gun legislation. And that was back in 1993. And then he's only held on to it ever since. And like you just laid out, he has gone further with it. He has also said that handguns are worse than semi-automatics and, you know, the AR-15s and this and that, you know, they are often not in the wrong hands. And this is kind of that, you know, illogical argument of then more laws will keep them from being in the wrong hands. And that just doesn't make any sense at all when there are already laws on the book to keep them out of hands of certain people. So basically he's a pro-hunting. He's kind of one of these guys that's like all in for having weapons for very primal reasons and nothing else. He doesn't even really support us being able to actually own the kind of weaponry we'd like to protect ourselves. So he's absolutely not quite the pro-freedom candidate that I think most libertarians, true libertarians, would be looking for. And it's just pretty outrageous, actually. But then again, I don't think Johnson is all that he's cracked up to be either.
You know, and the thing that honestly irritates me about this, with as disenfranchised as the majority of the American people were with the two choices that sit before us, the Libertarian Party had a real chance to legitimize themselves this cycle. I actually, in both on-the-record and off-the-record conversations with Nicholas Sarwark, was told that as soon as the choices solidified, his phone started blowing up. TV networks that had never wanted to talk to him before were asking to talk to him. They had people that were covering the Libertarian Convention like never before. And they had a real shot at unifying a large group of people that were disenfranchised. And the first mistake I think they made was when they opted against Austin Peterson, because the Libertarian crowd has kind of the old school nomination process, kind of like ours used to be. There's really not too much of a primary involved. The folks that are the party delegates are the ones that pick the nominee, kind of like the way it used to be before the two major parties started doing the primaries. And the scuttlebutt behind the scenes was, one, they felt like Peterson came off as a little too brusque in some respects and a little too kind of nose turned up kind of thing for a lot of libertarians. But the biggest thing that they were concerned about was all the conservatives that were looking at him as a viable candidate, and they were afraid that true conservatives were going to come in and take over their party. So the first conscious decision they made was because they made a choice, and they knew that, as far as they could tell, conservatives were not going to be able to rally behind a new party quickly enough. They weren't going to have the ability to build it up. They didn't have the funding for it. So they were going to have to come to the Libertarian Party on the Libertarian Party's terms, which, you know, made sense at the time. I understand why he was saying the things that he was saying, and I understand why he's been saying them on pretty much every interview he's done lately. But what I don't understand is when you already knew that the Libertarian or the conservative folks, if they came to the Libertarian Party, we're going to have to do it on your terms because of how badly the other two parties have screwed everything up. Why would you put your vice presidential candidate into the ticket that you knew was not a true libertarian? And I've heard this from everybody that I know that is libertarian. They're like, he's not actually a libertarian. They just put him on the ticket because he makes the ticket stronger. How does someone who is turning their back on every principle you stand for make your ticket stronger? That's the question I keep asking, and nobody can answer me. I'm telling you this tonight, folks, the same thing that I've been saying on my show now for about the last week. We are living in a world where they give us the illusion of choice. We are living in a world where all we are watching is, no matter which party it is, all they're really trying to do is rearrange the seats at the table to make sure they get a bigger share of power. That's really all this is. The Libertarians saw a shot to finally get themselves at the table. They took it, and they may or may not get there. Maybe not this round, I don't know. But I do know that the only reason I'm still even considering voting Libertarian is because I really do want to give more choice to my state. But at the same time, if the Libertarian Party is going to become just another socially progressive party, I really don't see any way that I can do that now. So I'm actually now back to the point where I don't know who I'm actually going to vote for at the top of the ticket, and I can't do a write-in because Oklahoma doesn't recognize write-ins. So I may just be focusing on down ballot at this point, because I'm not going to give legitimacy to another party that, as soon as they had a chance to do something that they said they were going to try to do this entire time, threw in for the sake of votes and basically just said, we're for gun control. Really? Your party is libertarian. Root word, liberty. Gun control does not behoove liberty. Just saying. So confused.
Yeah, not at all.
I don't know. I mean, I really try not to get angry over this stuff anymore, because I've been angry about it for a long time, and I've kind of come to terms with the fact that at this point I don't have a party and I don't really have a home, and at some point I'm hoping to maybe build one with some folks that I'm working with. But sadly, I'm so busy doing everything else, I really can't keep up too much with what's going on in there either. As a matter of fact, they're in the middle of a meeting right now, and I can't be there. But that's fine. It's just one of those things where every time I turn around, it's like, well, we're trying to make changes, and then that's the same thing you hear from everybody. And then as soon as they get the national spotlight, it's, oh, they're paying attention to us now. Let's do something crazy. I don't understand how we got here.
I also think that...
Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine. I also think that part of the problem with the Libertarian Party is that there hasn't been... They've had a hard time figuring out actually what they are and who they are. So it's been kind of a smorgasbord of disaffected voters that have been a part of these parties. And there are some places where it's way more established, certain areas, certain states, certain constituencies, where it's a little bit more consistent and established. But they've kind of been all over the map in what they fight for, what their priorities are. And so I think then the way that this election came down and the way it launched the Libertarian Party kind of into the spotlight a little bit as maybe an alternative or a savior for so many that were disgruntled with the two main party candidates, it really exposed the flaws. And that's kind of why we are where we are with them right now.
Yeah, I don't know how to fix this at this point. I keep flashing back to something that I saw Brad Thor tweet out today. Because he kept saying over and over again, there's no clear path. Anyway, it's basically show me a way to keep Hillary out, or to get a third party to keep Hillary out of the White House, and maybe I'll consider voting for them. Because he said principles are one thing, but when you're trying to cure cancer, principles aren't going to win the day. I keep flashing back to that because it's not a terrible analogy, but what he's failing to realize is the cancer that he's talking about is infesting every major party right now. There isn't just one party that's infested with the cancer. Progressivism is everywhere. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have watched the Democratic parties and the Republican parties basically share talking points this year at their convention. We wouldn't have watched one shun the American flag while the other embraced it. We wouldn't have watched both parties talk about income inequality, which one party has staunchly stood by the fact that it doesn't really exist. It's just basically a way the numbers get crunched, and the fact that there's times when women are off work that necessarily men aren't going to be off work for obvious reasons. And it's just one of those things where it's just a shell game at this point. Basically, all they're doing is they're taking the American people, they're putting a talking point up in front of them, they're then throwing a cup over the top of it, and they're spinning the cups around and trying to help you keep up with where the original talking point went, and nobody can do it anymore. Because no matter where you're looking, they're not telling you the truth. The party of freedom basically just told you to shove your Second and Fourth Amendment if you're on a terror watch list.
Right. And I think I'm trying to get my thoughts together here for a second. Just the agreements and then disagreements among all three of these parties on some of these issues. and not the parties, but the leaders or perhaps the nominees, has been part of what's been a little bit frightening to me. Like, for instance, like them saying, like the Democrats saying that, terrorist watch list people should not be allowed to buy guns. And then you hear the echo chamber there with the vice president of the Libertarian Party. But then also you had Trump's campaign say some very similar things. Like, yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, I'm okay with the list. If they're a terrorist, they shouldn't get them. And then that's Obama's at fault for letting him have a weapon. That kind of agreement on that and the stripping away of due process and our rights as citizens is so much what is terrifying about this entire election.
And I guess that is exactly where I am right now, because we have this merging of party ideals. And the scary thing is, I had always said that it would be good if the party started moving back towards the center. Scary thing is, right concept, wrong implementation, because they're not moving back to the center. They're both moving further and further left. I don't know how the party that was on the right side of the aisle suddenly leapfrogged to the left side, and now they're dragging themselves further and further left every day. And the people that are still screaming, must vote for Trump, must vote for Trump, either don't realize it or they're just so scared that Hillary's going to kill us all that they don't realize that he's just as likely to do the same thing, if not worse. I mean, for God's sake, Donald Trump said that he thought that Japan and North and South Korea should have nuclear weapons because North Korea has them. What the hell kind of sense does that even make from an international policy perspective? And then he backed off and said that he never said it. I have audio where he says both. Well, right. I think they should have nuclear weapons. And then somebody calls him out on it. Well, what about Iran? Well, let's face it, that's going to happen eventually anyway. Are you kidding me? That's your answer to whether Iran should have nuclear capabilities? As well, everybody knows it's going to happen eventually anyway. And this guy is still a serious, viable candidate for president? You're talking about Hillary Clinton being unviable, and I understand that she is probably the most vile woman on the face of the earth. I understand this. But when you have someone blatantly saying the things that this man says and nobody calls him on them. Nobody. There's a big, and then 3 days later, you get the tweet of apparently the mainstream media doesn't understand sarcasm. Really bad. Stupid.
Right. Or they twisted my words into, but no, these are words coming straight. You can't twist things that we have full audio sound bites of. I mean, when they're being played in their entirety, and those are exactly your words word for word. And most of the time, you haven't just said them once. You've said them 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 times. This is not some dishonest liberal media bias, and he'd have you think that anything like that, and his followers would too, at least on social media, have you think that anything like that is that's exactly what it is. And that kind of goes back to setting it up to the system being rigged, and so that he has something to blame, so that he's not the one that failed, it's someone else that sabotaged him. And he'll have a couple groups to point his fingers at, but namely it'll be the media, and it'll be never Trump.
Yeah, because let's face it, when he loses, because folks, I'm sorry, barring some sort of a miracle, this man is going to lose. He has single-handedly decimated the Republican Party. And at this point, I don't know which is worse for the Republican Party, him losing or him winning.
Well, and I have argued this with some people that I really respect, some people that are going to very, very, very begrudgingly vote for him because they just absolutely can't. They feel like otherwise they're allowing for a Hillary victory, and they can't stomach that, which I respect and I understand. But I don't understand this idea that the GOP is so sackless that we will not be able to fight Hillary. She'll walk all over everything and get anything she wants carte blanche. But and that's an opposing party president. But a guy that we nominated, our party nominated, we put in office allow him to have behaved the way he has during this campaign. He's never turned it down. He's only ramped it up. And somehow that same group of people that you're saying is too cowardly to hold Hillary Clinton responsible or accountable for anything, is somehow going to hold the member of their own party, the president of their own party, responsible, and that not be committing political suicide or otherwise, kind of reaping the backlash from, as we know, like the vindictive Trump campaign and army, is just completely, it's nonsensical to me that is even an argument at all. I just don't believe that. I don't think that they are going. It's easier to fight someone you oppose. We're expected to oppose the Dems. We're expected to go after them. We're expected to not indulge them with our own candidate and him being a president of our own party. That's not going to be the case. And the GOP will not survive if they destroy their own president from within. It's not going to happen. So I think that is a faulty argument from the get-go. It's one I see passed around a lot. So I do think that we can fight her better than we can fight him. And I think that if that happens and he does get in, and even if we did fight him to a certain extent, and I think it would only be the Ted Cruzes and maybe a handful of others, I think that they would feel some repercussions from Trump himself, from that administration, and from and from his supporters. And then I think that it would absolutely destroy the party down ballot in elections to come. I think it's absolutely detrimental to the party either way, but I kind of think that maybe him becoming president is worse for the GOP than better.
I think it's worse for the American people as a whole because,
well,
I've said it for forever at this point. With as much as he stirred up hate and rhetoric on our side of the aisle, and the Black Lives Matter movement stirring up hate and rhetoric on the other side of the aisle, if we don't do something to start putting a pin back in this stuff, we're looking at an all-out race war in the next 5 years. There's going to be no way around it. I mean, I literally have audio of people in the Milwaukee riots that happened recently stating that black people and white people can't coexist anymore. We're out for blood, just like you guys have been out for forever. And trust me, they weren't using the language I was using. There were a lot more expletives in there. But it was a phrase that kept being repeated over and over again. These people are angry enough at this point that they're actually looking at ways to start segregating themselves on their own. And the problem is the political class and the media have been feeding this anger, not doing something to make them understand that there are ways to fix the problems. Because they want us to hate each other. And it just goes along with everything else that we're seeing at this point. The Democrats and the Republicans have made some sort of behind closed doors deal to make sure that Hillary Clinton becomes the next president. It's the only explanation for the fact that the party fell in line lockstep with a crazy person. It's the only explanation that no matter how many times this man screws up, he still stays in the limelight and is still the one holding all the attention. It's the only explanation as to how he can over and over again white knight Hillary Clinton every time anything happens bad for her in the press. We have been played. And what scares me now is seeing what's happening with the Libertarian Party. It makes me start to get the sinking feeling that they're just as involved in the game as the other two parties have been now that they're getting more attention.
You could be absolutely right. And I think that it's not far off to, for you to think this way, for our minds to go this way, because especially with Trump and the Hillary situation and any news cycle that something is negative for her, I mean, he just goes and steps in it 10 times worse and then prolongs it by coming out and having ridiculous little sound bites and comments, or his spokesperson, Pearson, who is just, I don't even know how this woman is employed. I don't know how she's taken seriously on any level, which is more indication of Trump's, not taking this entire thing seriously, and also maybe of his lack of judgment. It's it's hard not to think that it's just all completely coerced and coordinated.
But he only hires the best people, folks, remember?
Only the best, I know.
All right, so believe it or not, my dear, we are already out of time. Why don't we do as we do every time we're winding down? Why don't you let folks know where it is they can interact with you should they choose to do so when you're not on air with me?
Alrighty, well, come bug me on Twitter at jholmstead. I'm on Facebook, JR Homestead, and then also misfitpolitics.weebly.com.
All right, and I, of course, can be found on Twitter at AOTR_host. You can also shoot me an email at rick@klnrradio.com or ricky@thesparkradionetwork.com, or you can go give my America Off the Rails Facebook page a like, or you can go look up my professional Facebook page, which is just Rowdy Ricky Robinson, and that's where you can find me. Of course, if you want to interact with me, Twitter is going to be the best place to do so. But at this point, folks, we have got to get out of here. We're already at the top of the hour, and I have to make way for the next hour, which is me, joined with my guest, Bryce Robbins. We're going to be talking about his recent grilling of Jill Stein and the fact that she'll probably never come on a show again, but it was a great, great interview. Just saying.
Listen to it.
Actually, about 1,000 people have so far.
Great. That's great.
I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do